in Photoshop, we want to open up the template that we saved from 3D Studio Max. There's a couple of things that we want to do with this file. The first is to select the shapes of the walls of the house. So we use the magic wand from the toolbar on the left-hand side to select the negative space around these shapes. We can then use the select menu to inverse the selection, and we end up with selection of all of the wall shapes. Now we're going to need this a couple of times throughout this process. So I want to save this selection. So I go to my Paths tab. So I've got my layers, my channels, and my paths. At the bottom of the Paths tab, there's an icon, third from the right, called Make Work Path from Selection. And that creates a path that represents the selection. And I can use that to reload the selection at any time. So if I lose my selection or anything like that, I can go back to my work path and I can reload the selection. Now the next thing we want to do is return to the Layers tab and add a layer. This first layer is going to be called Paper. This is the basis for all of our colour. And I want to set up two colours for my paper. Both of them just a pale grey or yellow sort of colour. Just don't want to use pure white because it's just a little bit too strong. So my foreground and background colours are set to some unique, just off-white colours. Before I apply these colours to these shapes, I want to just create a little bit of bleed. I want to just extend the selection a little bit. So from the select menu, I choose Modify, Expand. About 5 to 10 pixels would be enough expansion. And it just means that the colour will bleed out the edges and it will make a good match when this image is taken back into 3D Studio Max. So I can now use these two pale colours to create a paper texture. So from the Filters menu, I choose Render Clouds. And this gives me a very even mix of those two pale colours. Just enough to give it a little bit of texture. Now the next thing I want to do is start to apply some colour to the walls of the house. So I'm going to use my paintbrush, again from the toolbar. Choose a foreground colour that I want to paint my house. So let's say green, a pale sort of green colour. And in the brush properties at the top, I want a brush that's about 30 or so pixels in diameter, maybe 40, just depends, you can play around with it. You don't want it to be too big because you don't want the brush strokes to look too large. The hardness can be 100%, and I want to set the opacity of this brush down to around 30 or 40% so that I can start to create a build-up of colour. And so you can see that as I paint